Additionally, by 2050, 1/3 of all young people aged between 15 to 24 will be residing on the African continent. So you see, the future of this world is African. Allow me to say this once again a little louder for those of you in the back. The future is African. Already today, Africa is a catalyst for human potential and development, as well as for economic reform and ecological stability. Africa is a catalyst for systemic change. If this reality, which is fact-based and straightforward, seems provocative or unsettling, perhaps it's because you are viewing it through the lens of centuries of filters, colonialism and imperialism, and the resulting implicit bias.
If you are African and you've ever asked yourself what the future looks like, well, I'm here to tell you that the future is very much black. Yeah, the future is black. According to new statistics, Africa's population is meant to double by 2050. And come the year 2100, a third of the world's population will be African. 1/3 of the world's population will be African. So if ever you wondered what the future looks like, the future is black, very much black.
Grand rising kings and queens from Africa and across the ocean. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for watching my videos. Now, let me hit you with this truth that they don't want you to hear. You know, by 2050, black people will no longer just be a community. By 2050, black people will be the future of the world. And that, my brother and sister, that is exactly why white nations are panicking. They see the numbers, they see the power, they see the unstoppable rise of Africa. They see the unstoppable rise of the diaspora, of a people they once chained but could not arrest them. And here is what I have to say. I'll say this. What they fear the most is not that we will fall into their system, but they are fearing that we will rise above it, will rise and make their system irrelevant. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Because by facts, by year 2020, because by year 2050, it's a fact that 1 in every 4 human beings in this planet will be African. African population will surpass 2.5 billion. And that's not statistics. That is prophecy unfolding. And you know what? Africa has the largest number of people, and these people being youth. You know what that means. First of all, let's watch these clips and then we're coming back more with the more commentary.
Black people, African people, this is the thing they don't want us to know. Because if we knew this, there is no country on this planet that could come and rape Africa of its resources. Not one.
Because we are the greatest fighting machine in the face of the earth. If we ever discovered this, people gonna start running. Under proper leadership, proper inspiration, properly equipped, the black man is the greatest human fighting machine God ever created. Once you lose track of your heritage, you lose track of your liberty in this world.
We are the strongest. We are literally powered by the sun. We don't feel a need to even say these things, but the fact remains. All we ever wanted to do was just exist, just to exist. Is that too much to ask? We will never know peace as long as there are a people who only know death, destruction, and domination. The Congo, Sudan, and South Sudan, every country in Africa has the power to expel each and every invader.
Really give people in the diaspora an opportunity to see the story for themselves, right? And that's the work that Afrofuture is doing right now. We want to cut out the middleman. We want to tell direct stories about people and entities and culture directly to people from a very native perspective. Why is that important? Is because if we can tell our own stories, it's going to have context, right? For so long, you know, Africa is shown in poverty, war-stricken, famine, all of these things. Now, some of these things exist, but there's a whole other thing, there's a whole other perspective that also exists that requires additional support, that can benefit from capacity building, that can benefit from investment. Like, you know what I mean? We have several unicorns in Nigeria now. We have several unicorns in Kenya and also in Cairo, right? The continent is booming in fintech companies. There's so many agri-tech companies. You see so many world powers are currently fighting for infrastructure, contracts, and trying to control the countries. I mean, so for us, this is an opportunity for us to make sure that Black people in the diaspora getting on the ground work, right? And whether that's through entertainment, us, inviting you through entertainment and then you and experiencing it for yourself and seeing opportunities that exist, or us, creating conversations where now you can see the value proposition, whether through these panel discussions, thought leadership summits, and things of that nature that are coming out of these experiences. People are able to see the value. And then now, like, it's inevitable, 1 in 4 people are going to be African by 2050, right? Why is that important? Africa is the youngest continent in the world. That means we will have the workforce. Africans will determine what is cool, right? They will have the youngest population on the internet. And that's important because the next industries are going to come from the East. And, Black people need to be a part of that growth.
Do you believe that Africans can become more prosperous in this century?
Oh, but definitely. No one country, no one region has eternal rights to leading the world. It's a combination of how enlightened is your leadership, what are the motivations for doing so, and they can easily happen within a century. Africa, with the resources that are built in just to the land and the people and the diversity, I don't see why Africa wouldn't lead the world for millennia to come.
I've been seeing some of you being like, oh, you're wasting all your talents in the village. Why don't you go to town, get a job, do what you studied for? Let me tell you, the issue is not getting a job. A bad thing, most of you have idolized jobs. The issue is working. Most of you just want to look posh and pose on your village people. Oh, I'm in town, I work in town. We've done all that. And it's all vanity. So I should not see anyone, oh, go to town, find a job. No, I work. This is part of my work. Are you seeing? So what does it benefit me to be in town and I'm earning? Let me say, a good job is approximately 4 million, 3 million. Fairly a fair job, which is about $1,000. But when I can tend to my garden, my sugarcane garden, and earn more than that, so why should I trade my time, my 30 days, my 8 hours per day to someone that is not paying me what I'm worth? But most of you, ooh, go to town, get a job. If you want to do your job, some of you are called for that. Do it. I'm not called for that. I don't belong there. I cannot. The way you people fantasize jobs, most of you even leave your home places or districts. You have acres and acres of land and you go to town to work for just $200 a month. To go and work for just $100 a month. Let me stop running my mouth before you come and say, oh, you are violent. I sign out.
And you think Africa is big enough to get to $100 million?
Are you looking at markets outside of Africa?
Africa has 54 markets. We're looking at Africa only. In 7 years, Africa will be home to a third of the global population of youth. By 2050, 1 out of every 5 customers on the internet will be in Africa. Africa in the past decade has, out of the top 10 countries with the fastest growing GDP, 5 of those markets are in Africa. Retail spend in 2018 was about $1.4 trillion. 2/3 of that was consumer packaged goods. And it's considered one of the fastest growing regions for consumer packaged goods spending in the world. On top of that, when it comes to profitability margins, it's the most profitable region, bar none, to East Asia.
So this is when you drop the mic.
Yeah. She knows it's not.
There's a shift happening. China's hands are in Africa. Russia's shaking hands with us and trying to make moves. And even former colonial powers like France are realizing a power shift. Why? Because Africa is no longer asking for permission. Africa is taking control. Leaders like Traoré and Goita are pushing for more autonomy, sovereignty, and economic independence for Africa. And that's a game changer. Because the Africa of tomorrow is being built today, and it's being led by people like E.W. Traore and Assimi Goïta, who are Africa's first and African wealth first, the future is not in America. The future is undeniably so just prosperous for Africa. The future is Africa.
At our core, we're a Black culture. It's in our food, it's in our fashion, it's in the music that we embody all of the Black diaspora. And for me, that cultural value, I've always believed we should be working in the diaspora with Africa. I would want to tell the Africans who were born in the US or born in Europe, or the Caribbean, or the Black Caribbeans, or the Black Hispanics, or the Black Americans for that matter, I would encourage them to invest in Africa, not because Africa needs it, but it's a cheat code to building Black wealth, because it's good business. So why not do the business with your own people?
And that's exactly why we had this platform, because, you know, a lot of it is exposure. The media has put things in people's minds to where they don't even, we as the people who are most equipped to be able to invest and take advantage of the opportunity, we have the least interest out of everybody because of the way we view Africa a lot of times. It's time that we really start doing what we need to do to be a part of it and really lead that pack. Then one, we can develop technology, develop business, develop real estate in our country, so Africa, in our continent, so Africa gets to develop, Africa gets to improve, but at the same time, we own it. We build wealth with that, but we also control how the development is done, and it's done in a way that's beneficial for us, as opposed to a lot of the development is predatory. When Europe comes, they come with an agenda and they want to siphon resources out. Same with China and like other countries that, you know, it's purely economic and it's usually in their favor. But we can do it where it's mutually beneficial to all of us in the diaspora.
Welcome back. I said by 2050, African population will surpass 2.5 billion. It means panic. It means power to African nations, power to Black people. And white nations know what this means. They know exactly what this means, because for centuries, for a number of years, they thrived because Africa was kept weak, because Africa was kept divided and dependent. But in 2050, Africa will not only be the youngest continent. Africa will be the engine of global growth. Africa will be the engine of the world. And while Europe shrinks, while America goes down, while Asia begins to slow down, Africa will be overflowing with energy, creativity, and vision. Just think about that. Places like Nigeria, Ethiopia, Congo, Kenya, Ghana, the population will be larger than entire European blocks. Lagos alone may outnumber several European countries combined. So this means that white nation cannot stop the demographic shift. And numbers don't lie. Numbers don't negotiate. And this is why discussions around population control always seem to center on Africa. Once upon a time, when Bill Gates spoke of reduction of Africans' population, when Western NGOs push family planning campaigns with hidden agendas, it is not because they care so much about Africa's future. It is because they fear it. They fear the future of Africa. They underestimate, or they understand something. They understand that once Black people outnumber and outgrow them, the balance of power tilts forever. That is the reality. Now, why there is this panic and fear? White supremacy has always relied on being a minority that acts like a majority, okay? They build their power on psychological dominance. That's number one. They build their power on controlling systems of money, military, and media. But what happens when demographics no longer play in their favor? What happens when by 2050 the average Africans is 19 years old to 25 years old? What happens when the average in Europeans is 49? Imagine 49 years old in European and 19 years old in Africa. That means that white nation will be old, tired, and dependent, while Africa will be young, strong, and rising. And that's why you hear whispers of replacement theory in America, in Europe. That's why far-right politicians scream about immigrants, about birth rates, about protecting white identity. Down, they know that the truth. They know they cannot stop the Black future. 2050 is not just a year. It is the finish line of their fear and the starting line of a black identity or a black destiny, our African destiny, because we'll have what we call economic power shift. Because numbers don't just mean people. Numbers mean power. Africa holds like 30% of the world's mineral resources, okay? Cobalt in Congo, that runs your smartphone, lithium in Zimbabwe, powers your electric cars, oil, gold, diamonds, okay? And uranium fuel the global economy. So by 2050, as Africa industrialize and invest in their own industry, it won't just supply raw materials. It will manufacture, it will innovate, it will dictate global prices, okay? White nations knows this. They know this, and that's why they fight tooth and nail to keep African in the role of supplier. Never produce. They don't want Africa to produce. They don't want Africa to be the producers. That's why trade deals are unfair. Imagine when Africa begins to set its own term, okay? Imagine when Africa starts setting its own rules. Imagine when young African entrepreneurs dominate fintech, agriculture, and artificial intelligence. Imagine when the diaspora connects wealth from America, Brazil, and the Caribbean with investment back home. So by 2050, African continent, imagine when America begins, or when Africa begins to act to set its own terms. When young African entrepreneurs dominate fintech, agriculture, and artificial intelligence. This means by 2050, the African continental free trade area will be the largest single market in the world. Okay? 1.7 billion people moving goods and services and money without asking permission from Europe, without asking permission from America. This is the nightmare of white nations. This is the nightmare of an independent black economy that does not need their approval. Family. Politics is the engine that drives global order. And by 2050, black people, especially Africans, will no longer be silent participants. Okay? They will be decision makers shaping the destiny of the world. Look at the United Nations right now. Every vote counts. But imagine the power of 54 African countries voting as one bloc. That will be the largest voting bloc on earth. Okay? Right now, Africa's voice is weakened because leaders are divided, compromised, or maybe manipulated. But by 2050, the call of Pan-African unity will be too loud to ignore. Okay? Imagine a reformed African Union where leaders stand as one voice. Imagine Africa forming stronger alliances with the Latin America and Asian instead of bowing to Europe or the United States. Okay? And white nations will no longer control the narrative of democracy. They will not control the narrative of sanctions or interventions. And this is why white nations invest billions in destabilizing Africa through coups, through conflicts, and corrupt leaders. Because they know that once Africa speaks with one voice, the old order crumbles. Okay? Another thing why in 2050 Africans or black people will be the leading people, will be the future, is because of the culture domination. Okay? Culture is power. Culture shapes minds before politics or economics even enter the conversation. And the matter of fact, who is already running culture worldwide? It is black people. From hip-hop to Afrobeat, from street fashion to language, from TikTok dances to Hollywood blockbusters, the influence is undeniable. White youths imitate black culture more than they imitate their own. Gen Z is already choosing black culture over white systems. Okay? And now, project that into 2050, when Africa population has doubled, when the diaspora is fully connected online, when African Americans have come back to the motherland, when black creators dominate film, music, sports, and digital platforms globally, white nations won't just fear our numbers or our economics. They will fear losing their culture grip. Because once the world prefers the rhythm of Africa over the silence of Europe, image of superiority shatters. Culture is identity. And when the world adopts black identity, white supremacy dissolves into history. That is the reality. Another thing is the historical parallels. Okay? This has never happened before, but history speaks differently. The Roman Empire collapsed. Okay? It collapsed. It was drained by debt. The military overstretched. The British Empire fell after World War II because it could not sustain the cost of domination. And America today is walking on the same path. Endless war, and declining of influence. History shows us that empires fall not when they are conquered, but when they exhaust themselves. At the same time, oppressed nations or suppressed nations rise when they embrace their identity. Africa is at that turning point. White nations right now know this circle, and that's why they desperately try to rewrite history. They try to teach black children slavery as their beginning instead of empires. They know that if black people remember their true history, they know if we remember our true history, we will realize that we were kings and queens before we were ever slaves. Okay? And when that memory connect with 2050 reality, no empire on earth can hold black people down. No. There is another level of fear, and this one is spiritual, okay? Because across churches, mosques, shrines, and ancestral traditionals, a message is rising that black people are the chosen ones of this era, okay? Even white people, white prophets, white pastors, and scholars are beginning to admit it. They know how scriptures that speak of people scattered to the end of the earth, enslaved for centuries, yet destined to rise again, okay? In the Caribbean, in America, in Africa, and even in Europe, black people are reconnecting with lost spiritual knowledge, okay? We are remembering who we are. We are remembering whose lineage are we from, okay? In the Caribbean, in America, in Africa, and even in Europe, black people are reconnecting with the lost spirituals. And that's why most of them are coming to the motherland, okay? Now, 2050 will not just be a year of numbers. It will be a year of a spiritual rebirth that shifts global consciousness, okay? And for too long, the system thrived by dividing Africans from African Americans, Caribbeans from black Europeans, and locals from diaspora returnees. But those walls are falling, okay? Social media, travel, and migration are reconnecting black people, are reconnecting Africans with African Americans, are reconnecting Africans with Caribbeans. They are buying lands in Ghana and Kenya. Caribbeans are investing in Nigeria. Africans are moving abroad to learn skills and then returning to the land. So by 2050, this connection will form an unbreakable global black network, not dependent on white institutions, but powered by our own business, powered by our own banks, powered by our own blockchain technologies, okay? Imagine a future where black Americans bring capital, Africans bring land and resources, and Caribbean bring trade routes across the Atlantic. That is not just Pan-Africanism. It is a global black nationhood without borders. White nation cannot stop this unity. And that's our greatest weapon. Unity is the weapon of black people. White nations cannot stop this. And they know. Once black people stop seeing themselves as separate tribes and start seeing themselves as one family, game over. Now, I'll visualize this. By 2050, Africa is no longer the begging hand of the world. It is the heartbeat. Skyscrapers rise in Lagos, Nairobi, Accra, in Addis Ababa. African universities rival Harvard. Diaspora businesses find technology. They find technology hubs across the continent. Black Americans, tired of systematic racism, they are moving back in waves. Wears African fabrics and speaks African language. These are the cultural dominance. Politically, African holds global away or global sway. No decision in the UN passes without Africa's approval. Economically, Africa is no longer exporter of raw goods, but a producer of finished products, setting global prices. Spiritually, Africa holds global, or spiritually, the awakening is unstoppable. The prophecy fulfilled, the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And white nations, they fade into the background of history, just as Rome and Britain did before. So, 2050 is not just coming. It is already here. Every child born today in Africa is a seed of that unstoppable future. Every black person waking up to their identity is a step forward to destiny. White nations will continue to fear white nations will continue to panic, to scheme, but no strategy can stop the rising tide of black power. Our job is to unite, to love ourselves, to build our economies, to protect our culture, and to prepare for the next generation for leadership. Okay? Now, they fear us in 2050 because they know what will become, what us will become, or what will become. But we do not have to wait until 2050. The future is ours if we claim it now.